coming up next, just some final thoughts as we close out our series here, Turah or Nah, and then stay tuned to the end. I have some scriptures I'm going to show you that should leave absolutely no doubt as far as where Paul in the New Testament stands in regards to the law. Welcome to Word Made Fresh. Shalom all. I want to say welcome if you're new here. I am Shalom. And if you're returning, I want to say welcome back. Like I stated before, this is our last video in our series of Turah. Now, if you haven't checked out the first 8, I encourage you to do so you know where we stand and how we built up to that point. Speaking of building, we're going to get right to it here and start in James chapter 4, verse 12. And notice what the word says. It says, there is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and to destroy. Who are you to judge another? And so Yaakov, or James, talking about there being one lawgiver. And because there's only one lawgiver, is really the lawgiver, we know that to be the Father. It's his words that we hang on to and that we build on when it comes to knowing how the law operates in the age in which we live, right? And so let's go to see what he says. And we read this before, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But Yahuah 31:33 says this: for this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Yahusha after those days, declares Yahuah. I shall put my Turah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And we talked about what, writing it on the hearts and minds mean. We went through those scriptures. It just is indicative of it being on our minds so that we are thinking about it in our hearts so that we have the will to do that. We showed it in scripture. But the point being made is that the lawgiver said, this is what I'm going to do with my Turah. He says, I'm going to take it. I'm going to put it inside my people. So those are the words we build on, right? When I say build on, I mean that any other words in regards to the law in the New Testament, they're not going to contradict what the lawgiver himself has said. They're just simply going to add to that, right? So let's go over to John chapter 5, verse 22. And this is speaking of the Son. And the word says this: for the Father judges no one, but has given all judgment to the Son. And I go to that verse because we have the lawgiver and the judge, or we call him the supreme judge. But then he has appointed the Son as judge as well. So we have like an appointed judge, like a lower, seated court judge, right? But because he's been appointed, then he can't go against what the judge himself said. He can only corroborate what the judge is saying. And notice what the appointed judge, Yahusha, himself has said about the law. This is in Matthew 5:17 through 18, and we know it, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But he says, do not think that I came to destroy the Turah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete. For truly I say to you, till the heaven and the earth pass away, one yod or one tittle shall by no means pass from the Turah till all be done. And we understand all being done is synonymous with the heaven and earth passing away. So the appointed judge says, I didn't come to destroy it, but how can I come to destroy it? I've been appointed by the lawgiver and judge. Therefore, I cannot destroy the Turah because the lawgiver and judge says he's going to put it inside the people, so I can't destroy it, right? And so that's what the judge says, and that's what the appointed judge says, right? Now let's get to the New Testament scriptures, the New Covenant. It says this in Romans 3:31. Do we then nullify the Turah through the belief? Let it not be. On the contrary, we establish the Turah. And so I read all those scriptures really just to arrive at a point, and the point is a simple one. When it comes to understanding, Turah, we can't just only gain our understanding from the New Testament scriptures, the New Covenant scriptures, because that's not where it started. It starts back in the Old Covenant scriptures, and it starts with prophecy, right? And if you only get your understanding of how the law works from New Covenant scriptures, then you're only going to have a partial understanding, because we have to teach and preach the whole counsel of Elohim. And so you start with the foundation, that's the lawgiver. You start with what he said. Look at the appointed judge, that's Yahusha. Look at what he said. Those words match. So of course then the Paul's writings, the New Testament scriptures, they have to line up. That's why Paul says we establish Turah. And if they don't line up, what happens is then you break down the foundation, you break down what Yahusha said, and either you make Paul a liar or you make Yahusha and the Father a liar, and we know that not to be the case. And so I'm going to show you some very convincing passages here. Look at Acts chapter number 21, and this is just going to kind of seal it for us. He says in verse number 23, and when they heard it, they praised the master, and they said to him, you see, brother, how many thousands of Yehudim there are who have believed and are all ardent for the Turah. But they have been informed about you that you teach all the Yehudim who are among the nations to forsake Mashah, that means the Turah, saying not to circumcise the children, nor to walk according to the practices. So do this, what we say to you. We have 4 men who have taken a vow. And here's the vow. Take them and be cleansed with them, and pay their expenses so that they shave their heads, and shall know that what they have been informed about you is not so, but that you yourself also walk orderly, keeping the Turah. Real quick summary. Paul arrives at Jerusalem. They heard he's there, but there's a rumor going around about Paul. And the rumor is that Paul is teaching the folks to forsake Masha, meaning just to not obey Turah, right? That's the rumor. So he says, to prove that this rumor is not so, take this vow. And take this vow that says that what they're saying about you is not true, and that even you yourself walk orderly, and that you yourself keep the Turah. That's what you're taking the vow for. So let's go to verse number 26. And the word says this. Then Shaul took the men on the next day, and having been cleansed with them. Remember, that was part of the vow, to be cleansed. He went into the Kadesh place to announce the completion of the days of separation until the offering shall be presented for each one of them. So it's very simple. Paul took the vow that said he was not teaching to stop obeying Turah. He took that vow that said he himself kept Turah. That's the vow he took. The problem is Paul did not teach Turah the way that some thought he ought to teach Turah, which is teaching Turah to be declared right. We talked about that in the last video. Paul did not teach Turah that way, and so they didn't like Paul's teaching. They called him a false apostle, false preacher, and all those things. And what happens is what Peter says happens, and we won't go back to that scripture, but Peter simply said there are those who take Paul's words and they're unstable and they're unlearned, and they twist them around, and they end up doing things that the lawless people would do. So you have people twisting Paul's words all around. Some were twisting his words to mean that, you use Torah for works of salvation. Others were twisting his words around and say, we just don't obey Torah at all. No, the fact remains is that Paul taught we don't keep the law to obtain righteousness. However, we do keep the law because we're living out what we are internally. We're going to close it out right there. Listen, if you're new, you're welcome to subscribe. Check out some of our other videos. Thank you so much for your time here. Hope you have learned something. Hopefully this series has been edifying. And until next time, learn the word, live the word, and share the word. Shalom. I'm tired of waiting, time to master pep. I'ma tell the whole truth and shame the devil.